Well, anyways, man, I gotta say, obviously had the opportunity to see you last weekend, and it was a hell of a show. Just because we're coming off that, I just want to jump in onto that kind of angle of things. I don't know if that was your first time playing a Paradise event, but obviously, Hot Creations has definitely put out some of your best music. I'm just curious if you could kind of talk on the brand a little bit and what it meant to you to just be playing, an event like that at a venue like the Mirage.
Yeah, so I guess I first met Lee Foss a long time ago, like probably like 10 years ago, probably longer actually, in LA. And this was right before they had it's probably 11 or 12 years actually, right before they launched Hot Creation. So I knew Lee. I didn't really know Jamie, but I knew everyone around the whole crew, and we were just friends. And like, I, the music I was making was more techno at the time, and I knew what they were doing, but I just didn't really connect with me because I was outside of that sphere. But they were all my friends, so I'd go to those parties. So I heard Jamie DJ, and I remember like it was a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I was in Ibiza and I was at a Paradise, and it was like I was in the main room and it was like super techno, and I was like, fuck, this is really cool. Like I was looking at the lineup, I'm like, this is a really cool like eclectic group of like, you know, DJs. So it was like, I was like, oh, this is, maybe it's time to send them some music, maybe our sounds will kind of cross paths. And I thought about it for a while, and then I just kind of didn't really have any of the right music. And then obviously I had that track Mad Stacks, and then I sent that over and it got signed, which was really cool for me because I've been a fan for so long of just Jamie as a DJ. And so yeah, when that happened, I was super stoked. It was very natural. Like there was no like, I just sent it over. It wasn't like anything like planned or anything. So I wanted to be on the label for a while, but I just wanted to wait for the right moment. So then with that, and then obviously that came out during the pandemic, so there was no events we could really do, which stunk at, it was a bummer because I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to play some parties off of this, and get involved, because their parties in Ibiza are rocking. If you've ever been, they're super dope.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, when the email came through about Mirage, it hadn't been in New York in so long. My last show was actually in Brooklyn at the Elsewhere, but it had been like maybe 4 years ago. I'd never been to the Brooklyn Mirage ever, so that was like, I remember getting there and I was like, damn, this is dope. Like I'd heard good stories, so yeah, I was super excited when I got there, and then yeah, I rocked up and it was already rocking, and I was like, heck yeah, this is gonna be a good one.
Yeah, man, it's crazy, and I think besides that, it's obviously just a spectacular venue, production wise and capacity wise. I think what's cool is like, they people really come for it. Like Jamie's coming on at 2:30, but the dance floor is going to be packed, 4 hours before that. I mean, I think I got there like half an hour before your set, and I mean the place was slammed. Um, as you mentioned it though, Cali guy, growing up in Newport Beach. Could you just tell us a little bit about kind of your introduction to the world of music and how you discovered electronic?
My initial introduction to music was through my father. He was like more of a classical musician, like classic rock musician, not classical, but yeah. So I listened to a lot of music when I was younger, and I actually, from hearing it so much in the garage, like a lot of contemporary and classic rock stuff, I kind of gravitated away from it when I was younger. He like wanted to always teach me piano and guitar, but I shied away from it just because I was like, I wanted to do something different, be my own person or whatever you might think it was at the time. But yeah, I skated a lot, skated and surfed, so like I got super into like punk rock music and stuff like that. And so that was kind of the initial like floor to the floor stuff, was more of the punk stuff. And then I remember I went to a rave in San Bernardino. I was probably like 17 or 18, and I didn't know what I was getting into. I went with some friends, and it turned out to be like some super candy flipped out rave. And I went, and I remember the sound system being like, I was just so blown away. I was like, I've never heard like sonically anything like that. And so then I was asking around, like, what kind of music is this? Like, oh, this is house music. So I was like, cool. Like, I'm into house. I was like, I like house music now. So then I got super into house music. I started producing it like because I was just excited about it. And I was like, well, this is so cool. I can do it as like a one person thing. I don't need a band to make this kind of music, you know? So yeah, I started making this music, and then yeah, I started showing people, and they were like, this isn't house music. And I was like, what do you mean this is house music? And they were like, no, this is like techno music. And I was like, whoa, techno music. So then I started doing some research on that, and then I was like, whoa, techno. And I found out about like Sven Vaith and Richie Houghton and Dubfire, and just kind of what was like at the time, like all the minus stuff was super influential. And yes, then I was like, I make techno. So then I started doing that, and then next thing you know, it's 10 years later, and I'm sitting here talking to you. But yeah, in Newport Beach, it was hard because it didn't exist here back then. There was no parties, so when I wanted to like listen to techno music, I had to go to LA. And
Yeah.
And that was back when Richie would bring the entire like minus crew to LA, and it wouldn't even be full. Like you'd go to the parties and you'd be like room to dance, and now it's like looking back at that, it was like such a crazy moment in time, like because now it's since then it's exploded. And you know, to see the meteoric rise, especially in America. I mean, obviously in America. In Europe, it's always been cracking, but yeah, that was kind of my introduction.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it's really interesting to kind of have that first introduction be the underground scene while like the EDM boom is happening. And I'm sure that was kind of like going on in the background for you and you're just observing it. But you mentioned Dubfire, you know, I think he's, at least I kind of sense that he's been a bit of a mentor for you and one of the guys who kind of helped open the door for you early on. I was wondering how you kind of initially connected with him and what that relationship's like.
Yeah, he's definitely like, I owe him a lot. Like he still is my mentor. We actually, since we met probably over 10 years ago, we become super tight. Like now he's just like a friend, you know, like we just talk like about whatever. And but then the initial like meeting, I was already a fan of him at the time, and I always liked his music. And I remember I had a project called Shadow Play prior to Shaded, and my partner, her name was Shadi, and we were making music, you know, a bunch for probably over a year together. And then like one day I just kind of mentioned like, oh yeah, we should like try to send this to Dubfire if we can somehow get it to him. And she was like, oh yeah, I know him. And I was like, what? I'm like, how did I not know about this? She's like, oh yeah, I like know him. Like we can email it to him. I got his email. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, I like personally know him. So we started emailing him tracks, and he didn't respond for like, I swear it was at least 8 or 9 months, probably around there. And then out of the blue one day he hit us and was like, hey, I've been rocking these tracks, they've been killing it, like send me more. And I was like, this is so random.
Like, okay.
And the next thing you know, we signed like 4 EPs over the next like 2 years. No, more than that. Signed like 5 EPs over like 16 months or something. It was pretty wild how it just happened, you know. And
Yeah.
that was how I met him, and yeah, ever since we've been just super tight. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's pretty unique to kind of have that, you know, early recognition from such a figure in the industry. I'm just curious, you know, with the Shadow Play project, when did you know that, you know, you felt like you wanted to take your sound into a bit of a different direction and go solo?
Me and my partner at the time, we just didn't see eye to eye on where we were going with it. And so it just kind of made sense. And I was talking to Dubfire, and he was like, well, if you know, it was just kind of like a different, we were in different places in life. Like I was looking to tour more, and she wasn't. And so we just kind of decided like, hey, let's separate, and I'll just go my own way. And I had talking to Dubfire, and he was like, well, you know, you want to become my opening live act on tour? And I was like, yeah. I was like, well, I'm gonna change my name to Shaded. And he's like, cool, done, let's do it. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, your next EP signed, we'll just put it out as Shaded. And I was like, tight. And then that was it. And it was like I mean, it was really a real bummer at the time, because Shadow Play had like a really good thing going. Like it was making some noise. So having to like just leave it and move to a new name, even though I think people kind of knew, it still took some steam away. So it was a little bit of a bummer. But yeah, I mean, looking back in hindsight, it was a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, definitely gave you that jump start. And obviously, I think it's funny because when I was with some friends who are a little bit less in the scene before we were coming to the show, and they're asking me about you because I had said I was going to interview you, and I'm showing you them, and it's just like, your sound is just so unique, and I don't know that there's anyone that's really doing it like you right now. You just mentioned it, he asked you to be the live act. Since you started this project, I think you've almost exclusively played live setups. Really unique kind of way to using like the Zone MIDI and Machine and Roland VT4. For you, why did you want to focus on a live performance? And are there any kind of pros and cons that you've learned from it over the years?
Well, at the time, it was essentially came down to I was just talking to Ali, I mean Dubfire, and he's like, yo, look at, I want to take you on tour with me. Most of the clubs, you got like an hour slot before me. I mean, you could do a DJ set, but he's like, it would be super sick if you played live because like no one has music like you. And I think you could, really have something special. And I'd already wanted to do that. That was already my goal. I like DJing, but it's actually, to be fair, like honest, DJing to me doesn't really excite me that much. I enjoy it for like an after party or something, or when my friends are around. But like if I'm going out, I came from a band background, so the idea of performing your own music, and I also came from a production background. So before I was ever DJing, I was making music, and so that's always been my passion, is to write music and then translate it onto the stage and see how people react. So that was just kind of a natural progression. And then obviously he wanted to take me on tour. I mean, the positives are, like you said, it's a unique show. Nobody has any of the music I have because it's all my own. I play a lot of unreleased stuff, and that kind of gives me this, and it also allows me to kind of play stuff at specific parties that I can get away with because I am live. Like for Paradise, for instance, like I don't feel like I play techno, and I don't feel like I play house. Like I feel like I'm right in the middle of the two. Yet I don't play tech house. Like what the current tech house is. So like at Paradise, I was able to play a little bit more techno-y, I think, than maybe other artists were, just because it is live and people understand that. They're like, oh, this is something different. The cons, though, is you can't really play more than 2 hours, because I think I would never want to go see a band for like 4 hours. Like I'd be down. I want to go see a band for an hour or 2 hours, see the show, and be gone. So I treat it that way. It's like no matter who the artist is, no matter what, the sound is going to have a specific identity. So after a certain amount of time, it's like I want to hear something new. Whereas the DJ, you can move through genres and play different producers who have a completely different vibe, and it kind of has more of a journey. You can make a more diverse journey as a DJ, whereas a live show, it's a little bit more focused. Still, you can create a journey, but I feel like you have a little bit more constraints. And not, when I say the word constraint, I mean it in like essentially in the diversity of the set. It's like, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're playing your music, and you obviously have a very specific sound. So if you're playing live, like you're
Yeah.
gonna be playing live renditions of your own tracks. I watched this whole video of you like breaking down kind of your tech setup, and describing kind of the challenges and the things you like. Do you feel that like what you have right now is kind of the complete live setup, or are there any pieces of hardware that you'd like to add in the future?
I definitely want to take it to the next level. We're already working on a visual show that's going to sync up to my Ableton set with a visual artist. It's been really slow building because it's just been the pandemic and everything, but we have some stuff going on there. In terms of gear, yeah, I want to bring in some more keys. Eventually I will. When like for festivals and stuff, I would love to bring in like keyboards and maybe another drum machine. I don't want to go too big because I just think within an hour, you only have so much time to create so much stuff. And I feel like, it just doesn't translate in terms of, if you're playing like a long show, then yeah, but I definitely do. Right now, it's just been hard. I think once the profile gets bigger and stuff, I'll be able to make some bigger things, and maybe even bring in people to play, you know, like do some, like have someone else on the keys while I'm playing and stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely in the future, and I hope to get there someday.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, I mean, it was really cool to see, and I think it came off well, and it felt like, you know, at a venue like the Mirage, like people really got it and they were feeling it. I'm just curious, as somebody with as you mentioned, a band background, and, you know, growing up around classical and classic rock, are there any artists or genres of music that you listen to that are kind of outside of the dance world?
I mean, the most recent one is my girlfriend introduced me to Crumben. I think is that how you say their name? Crumben.
Yeah, that's a hot one right now.
I love them. They're so good. I listen to them all day. But I listen to a lot of old hip hop stuff. I'm sure you kind of maybe got. I like a lot of hip hop in my set. I use a lot of hip hop ideas and stuff. I mean, fuck. That's kind of it right now. I mean, it goes between that, and then I listen to a shit ton of Sublime. Being from the West Coast, you got to listen to Sublime.
That's very on brand.
Yeah, people like hate on it sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, I guess you'd understand if you were from here, but like, I don't know. A lot of that, a lot of like the old Dr. Dre and Snoop stuff. And then I'll just have some random classical stuff playing to wind down. But honestly, I don't really listen to much music. Like, I actually rely on my friends to know about music. That's like, I'm literally would be the worst DJ because I don't know any names of songs. I don't know shit. Like, you know.
No, that's fair. I mean, that's an honest assessment. That's obviously, there's a reason why, you know, you have a preferred way of playing. That's great, man.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to the studio, like obviously you have your whole live setup, but are there any, you know, pieces of hardware that you find yourself relying on heavily in the studio, or Ableton plugins that you just want to give a shout out to?
Recently I've been using a lot of the Isotope stuff. So shout out to Isotope. They've hooked it up. I love their stuff. It's all in the box, but it sounds great. I love it. In terms of gear, I don't really care. I'll use anything. As long as I can get a good bass sound, which I use a lot of the Moog stuff. Moog has been like quintessential in developing the shaded sound, I would say. Like literally every shaded track has a Moog in it. But yeah, that's about it. I like the Roland stuff, the old SH 101. Those two, SH 101 and a Moog, any Moog really. I mean the Sub Fatty or they're all sick. I mean, but at the end of the day, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's nothing I'll use anything. I feel like a lot of it just comes from the creativity that you can kind of create with it. And I feel like right now in the box is the way to do it. Like, obviously you'll hear the difference with analog gear, especially if you're recording it properly. But I feel like the stuff now sounds so good that it's like, the best time you could be a producer right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like asking this question to everybody, and I think that is something people say, and it's interesting because it's just like, you know, if you're trying to get into this 20 years ago, like the floor is just so much higher. And now,
like if you had a 909 back then, like you had to, not even a 909 10 years ago. Back then it was probably cheap as fuck because you get a 909 for dirt cheap. But now if you want one, it's super expensive. And then you have someone like Behringer coming out with 909s for like $400, and they work insane, and you're like, this is crazy. Like, how are they selling it for this cheap? And then you use it and like, it does sound good. Like, I'm like, damn, this sounds nice. You know, obviously, you know, it might not last as long, but
yeah, no, I mean, and I mean, it's just accessible. Like I literally have like the 3-month trial of Ableton on my computer. Like, you just play around with it for fun, watch some YouTube videos. I wanted to ask you about Mad Stacks. Obviously, you know, one of your biggest tracks to date. I think, as you've said yourself, you know, it's kind of defining of your sound. So I don't need to ask you that, but I'm just curious. Do you remember kind of the process of making it? And when you finished it, did you have a bit of a sense of like this is a big one?
It was funny. I was moving back from Europe. I didn't have a place to live. I was staying in my dad's house before I moved into my new spot. I set up a super ghetto studio in his garage, and I just wrote mad stacks. And I remember the bass line was super cool. I was like, okay, this is a dope bass line. This hit's good. Super simple, effective. I was like, I just need a cool vocal. And I was just cruising in the car, playing hip hop music like usual. And I was just kind of like playing with words. And I was like, oh, that would be a cool word. And then I was like, oh, that would be sick. That phrasing, like, you know, that could be catchy. And then I went in the studio and started recording my voice over and over. So if you listen to it, it's layered a bunch, the mad stacks. And there's a bunch of different versions of the vocal. But yeah, just kind of, it literally came together super fast, super easy. I thought it was dope. I played it for some friends. They're like, oh, this is super dope. And I was like, cool. So I set it up. I played it live for the first time at Desert Hearts Festival. And that's when I knew. I was like, oh, okay, this is a bomb. I was like, this goes off. Like, people were singing it already after the first, you know, breakdown into the second breakdown. I was like, okay, sick, you know? And from then on, it was just kind of like, all right, where do we send this? And that's when I hit up my buddy Rybo, who works with Jamie. And he was like, I was like, yo, could you get this into his inbox for me? You know, and he was like, yeah, done. And then next thing I know, I saw videos of him rocking the track at festivals. And that was that.
That's a hell of a feeling, man. No, I mean, it felt very defining, and obviously like really like shows what your sound is about. You know, I don't want to keep you too long here, but I just want to ask kind of what's coming up for you. You know, do you have any music coming out? What's the tour plan? Any, you know, we're going to see you back in New York anytime soon?
I hope to be back soon in New York. I don't know when. I would love to come back every year though, because it's been a while. In terms of new stuff coming out, I got a remix drop. I just had a track drop on Desert Hearts called Layback Maybach with my homegirl Carrie. She kills it. We've known each other forever. We finally got in the studio and got to make that track. It's X-rated, naughty. I'm super stoked it finally came out. In November, I got a remix dropping on Desert Hearts for Pop Off. I played it in Brooklyn. I felt like it did the damage, so I'm super stoked. I'm gonna make a couple tweaks and then submit that. And then I believe in December, I got my debut EP dropping on Trick.
Ooh, wow.
Maybe leave that out. I don't know if I'm supposed to announce that yet.
Well, I think we'll probably wait. Like, this probably won't come out for at least, like, it's not going to come out next week. So maybe you find out and then let me know, and we'll cut it out if we need to.
Yeah, you know, are you in contact with Alice?
I'm talking to Andrea.
Oh, from okay.
With Get In,
I'll make sure you know.
Yeah.
That Trick EP has a bomb or remix on it that I can't say yet, but people will be psyched on the remixer. And then I have another thing dropping on Trick compilation eventually. And now I'm working on some other stuff, but we have some heat coming. I'm super excited to like finally be through the pandemic and be able to put music out more regularly. And yeah, I got some treats coming, so keep those earlobes ready.
That's awesome, man. Well, listen, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was awesome seeing you absolutely crush it at the Mirage, and we'll keep our ears to the ground and waiting for those new tracks, and hopefully we'll see you back in New York before we know it, huh?
I hope so, man. I hope so. Much love. Thanks for the interview. And yeah.
Awesome, man. You have a good one.
All right, you too, dude. Later.
See ya.